Hello guys, and welcome back to another Etheria restart video. I'm making this video as a follow-up to my first one regarding Oryes. A lot of people are saying that he is very bad, and honestly, I understand where that opinion comes from. He has a low base speed, some of his effects are situational, and if you put him into the wrong team, he can absolutely look underwhelming. But after using him myself in PvP, I think there's an important part of the conversation we're missing. He is not a universal support. He's a matchup-based character. And once you start treating him that way, I think he becomes a lot more interesting. Now, I'm not here to tell you that he is secretly broken. He isn't. I'm also not going to pretend he's better than every support in the game. Actually, I agree with some of the criticism I've seen. His 1 in 20 base speed is slow. His S1 isn't some incredible game-changing ability, and his debuff extension can feel irrelevant if there's nothing important to extend. But I think the mistake is looking at those weaknesses and then jumping to the conclusion that the entire character's bad because he was never designed to be thrown into every arena match. He's designed for specific situations. The biggest part of his kit that I think people are undervaluing is his passive. He gives your entire team 50% extra effect res, and when your allies successfully trigger that extra effect Oryes mechanic for the first time each turn, they gain turn meter. So he isn't simply giving you resistance, he's giving you a way to turn resistance into tempo. And that becomes especially interesting against teams that rely heavily on debuffs and control. If the enemy's strategy is constantly throwing debuffs at your team, he can make those attempts less reliable while also allowing your team to gain additional turn meter when you resist them. And that's the first thing I want you to keep in mind when watching these matches. You don't pick him because he's good against everything. You pick him because he's good against what you're looking at on the other side of the screen. That's a completely different way of evaluating a character. Now let's talk about his S2. He hits the entire enemy team and can apply accuracy down and speed down. On paper, that might not look as impressive as some of the overloaded abilities we've been getting recently. But think about what those debuffs actually do. Accuracy down makes enemy debuff-based characters less reliable, while speed down directly affects their ability to control the turn order. If your team already benefits from controlling the pace of the match, this becomes much more valuable. Then, we have his S3. He purifies multiple debuffs from your team and gives them counterattack rate up and life leech, while also applying heal overtime based on the debuffs he purified. And yes, it's situational, but that's literally the point. If the enemy hasn't put meaningful debuffs on your team, obviously this isn't going to look impressive. But if multiple members of your team are covered in debuffs, Oryes can completely change the state of the fight with one button. So, when I hear someone say, I used him and his S3 didn't do anything, my response isn't necessarily, you're wrong. My response is, then why did you draft him into that matchup? And I think that's the biggest lesson here. Some characters are universal. Some characters are specialists. And I think he belongs in the second category. I've recorded several arena matches specifically to test this, and this is where the difference becomes much easier to see. I'm not trying to force him into every possible situation. I'm looking at the enemy team and asking, what is this team trying to do, and can he directly interfere with that game plan? When the answer is yes, he becomes much more useful. You can see him helping my team resist important debuffs, generating turn meter, applying accuracy and speed down, and cleansing when the enemy manages to stack enough pressure. And more importantly, my other characters are actually capitalizing on the advantages he's creating. That's something I think is important when evaluating support characters. A support doesn't necessarily need to get the final kill. Sometimes their job is simply to make the rest of your team function better. If he makes your DPS move before the enemy, prevents an important debuff from landing, slows down the opponent's opener, or cleanses something that would have stopped your carry from functioning, then he contributed to that victory. That's still value. Now, does this mean you should go all in on him? No. If you're low on resources, don't enjoy PvP, or already have strong answers for the matchups where he would be useful, I completely understand skipping him. There will absolutely be teams where I'd rather use another support. But I don't think the answer should automatically be, this character isn't broken, therefore he's trash. And this brings me to the bigger issue I have with the current reaction to new characters. It feels like we're stuck in this cycle where people complain when a new character's too strong because they're worried about power creep. Then a new character comes out who's more specialized and balanced. And suddenly people complain that they're trash because they aren't dominating the meta. But if every new character has to be stronger than the previous best character, where does that leave us 6 months or a year from now? Every new release would have to power creep the previous one. Eventually, the only way to make a character exciting would be to make them completely ridiculous. I don't think that's healthy for Etheria long term. I actually think characters like Oryes can be good for the game. Not because he's perfect, not because he's broken, but because he's different. He gives you another option for dealing with certain teams and rewards you for actually thinking about your draft and matchup instead of simply picking the 5 strongest characters available. So after using him myself, where do I stand? I don't think he's a meta-defining monster. I don't think he's a must-pull. And I definitely don't think he's universally better than the existing top-tier supports. But I also don't think he's trash. I think he is a specialized PvP character that becomes genuinely good when you understand where to use him, who to pair him with, and, most importantly, who to use him against. If you use him blindly, you're probably going to hate him. If you draft him intelligently, I think you'll be surprised by what he can actually do. So I'm going to let these PvP matches speak for themselves. Pay attention to the teams I'm using him against, and what happens when his passive S2 and S3 start working together. Maybe you still think he is bad after watching them, and that's completely fair. But I think he's being judged a little too quickly. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.